What's going on, everybody? Today it's going to be a simple video. What we have is we've got a customer that brought this new Huffy Cranbrook in, and he was complaining about how difficult it was to ride. Now, there are many reasons why this could be happening. This is not the highest end bike, he knows that, but the biggest reason why it's not riding very good is because the gear ratio on this is so high. We've got a 44 tooth sprocket in the front, and we've got a 19 tooth sprocket in the back with 26 by 2.125 tires. Now, if this was mine, I would have something along the lines of at least a 40 tooth on the front. However, with this customer, we don't think that that's going to be quite enough, so we're going to go a little bit more. Now, there are two ways that you can go about this. We can change the sprocket on the front, which means that we'll have to shorten the chain. We go with a smaller sprocket in the front, which will gear it down, and then we just shorten the chain. On this one, what we're doing is, since we don't have, I have a 40 tooth sprocket that I can put on the front. That goes for about $10 for the sprocket, and then labor is about 25 bucks, and then I'd have to shorten the chain a little bit. The other thing that we're going to be doing, or that you can do, is you can change the gear in the back. You can go with a larger gear in the back, which does a couple of things. One, by going with a larger sprocket in the back, it's less stress on the chain, so it actually allows the chain to last longer. However, you have to put a new chain on this bike. I've had nothing but trouble with these chains breaking. They're a very inexpensive chain, and whenever you have an adult male 200 pounds plus riding this bike, if the chain gets loose at all, it can break so easily. So we're upgrading the chain for him, which is the reason why we're just changing the back. If it's not enough, then we can change the sprocket in the front to something smaller. He's willing to take that risk. Let's take this out for a quick test ride and see how difficult this is to actually ride. Okay, so this is a slight incline, and let's try this again. Okay. Yeah, this is very difficult. So let's try to fix these gears. As you can see, this bike doesn't take off very well. The gearing is so incredibly high, so it is a good thing that we're changing the gearing on this. So with that, let's go ahead and take this rear wheel off, and let's get this thing rideable. Now, as you can see, we've got a new sprocket here. This is actually a 22 tooth Shimano Nexus rear sprocket. Now, this one will work with a 3/32 chain or a 1/8. We're going to be using it on a 1/8 today. And on top of that, we've got a KMC B1H, that's the heavy duty chain to put onto this bike. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you want to loosen the brake arm strap on the non-drive side of the bike. So we're just going to loosen this, and we're not going to remove it yet. We're going to leave it loose so that we can go ahead and loosen the rear wheel. So I'm going to loosen the non-drive side a little. That was actually looser than it should have been. And we're going to loosen the drive side, which was also kind of loose. Since these are now loose, but not completely loose, I can go ahead and remove the bolt from the brake arm. Now at this point, the only thing that's keeping the wheel in the frame is the fact that I haven't completely loosened this non-drive side. So I'm going to grab hold of the wheel, and I'm going to go ahead and loosen this, and then the wheel comes off. Take the chain off, and now we're ready to put the new gear on. Now the first thing that you want to do is you want to get a small screwdriver like so, and there's 3 tabs on this hub. We're going to put the screwdriver into one of these tabs, and we're going to pry the spring, the clip, out of place there. So as you can see, it's starting to come out. Now at this point, I put a finger onto the spring, and then I carefully maneuver it off. You want to keep something on there, because otherwise, as you just saw, if I didn't have my finger on that spring would have shot across the room. The gear comes right off. Now we've got our new gear here. We're going to put it in place, and then we're going to install this ring. Now this is a little bit more difficult because it's very tough to get on there. So what I like to do is I start on the opposite end of the split here, and then I start to push it in, and then I'll work one side into place. Did you hear it snap? Now we're going to pop this in place, and it snapped into place. Now you need to make sure that your snap ring is fully in place. This one right here is not quite in place, so what we're going to do is get a pair of pliers and just kind of squeeze it in a little bit just to ensure that it's all the way in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that it's all the way in place, and it's not, it does seem to be in there pretty good. And I just keep working it around. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Make sure the wrench doesn't slip. And then we're going to physically grab the gear and try to make it come off. We're going to pull on it. Be very careful. You may want to wear eye protection, because if this spring pops off, you don't want it to hit you in the face. Okay, that is in place. Let's go ahead and get this wheel put back onto the bike, and let's swap out the chain. Now that this cog is on this wheel, I want you to notice, I'm going to go ahead and try to put this back into place, and we're going to notice that we're going to come up short. This axle is barely in the frame. We can tighten it on there, but a good couple of bumps this wheel can shoot out. So we're going to have to add at least 2 lengths to this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this wheel on. You can actually see scratches where this wheel was before. Now, it's probably not going to be in the exact same spot. It rarely is, but it's going to be close. So we're going to go ahead and get this brake arm bolt, and we're going to put it in place. And while I'm holding the brake band there, see, I can free up my hand a little bit. I'm going to put this nut, screw it in place on the bolts All right, and then I'm not going to let go at this point. I'm going to just lightly tighten this wheel, which allows me to let go of the wheel. We're going to get a chain breaker. Now in this one I'm using a Park Tool CT-3 chain breaker. We're going to look on the chain to see if there's any master links. There shouldn't be on this because Huffy saves a couple of dollars by not putting one on there. And we're going to cut the chain. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the chain onto the tool. In its little holders there, we're going to line up the pin with the chain pin, and then we're just going to push it out. Okay, you don't want to push the pin all the way out because that helps with putting chains on. So I pushed it mostly out, and if you time it just right, if you flex it a little bit, it'll break free, just like that. Let's get the new chain here. And this chain is 98 lengths. I'm afraid this might come up a little bit short, but we're going to find out. I may have to use a different chain. We're going to put this chain in place. Now, I could have just counted the old chain to see if it would work. And as you see, this chain comes up several lengths short. It's alright, I've got a fix for that. Alright, so I went into my scrap chain pile, and I've got a piece of scrap chain here that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more lengths. I'm going to put it in place, and remember what I was talking about not putting the pin all the way in. So I'm going to snap it into place, and it should snap. There we go. And then I can let go of it. I can grab my chain breaker, and we're going to push the pin in. So I'm going to put the chain in place. I'm going to back my pin out, the tool pin that is. I'm going to line it up with the chain pin, and then I'm going to carefully press it in. And you want to make sure that pin stays straight, and you're not looking for a lot of resistance. If you're pushing it in and you're feeling some resistance, you keep pushing it in, and then right there I feel more resistance, and I can feel it giving, and I'm watching that pin on the other side come through. After it's through an adequate amount, I'm going to take the tool off, and then we're going to loosen up the chain here. Lots of times whenever you put a chain together this way, you'll have a stiff link. All these links here move except for this one here. Now if you get this chain and flex it from left to right firmly, the chain will loosen right up. Now that's done, we're going to hook this chain up using the master link. Now with KMC's B1H chain, you're going to have an interesting master link. This may be a master link you've never seen before. You've got two identical links, one with a pin and one without. We're going to put one pin in onto one chain, on one end of the chain, on one side, and we're going to install the other link. Let me move my hand out of the way. We're going to install the other link onto the opposite side of the chain on the opposite side. Okay, now we're going to connect the chain by overlapping the two pins, line up the hole, and let it snap into place. Now you want to line the pin up into the larger part of the hole on both sides. With a little bit of pressure, the master link will lock into place. Now that we have the chain put on, we're going to tighten up the chain. And we're going to do that by loosening this non-drive side, and we need to hold the wheel to ensure that it doesn't fall out of place. Now, you need to grab hold of the clamp on the left side and make sure it's not binding up, and just kind of work the wheel back, and you might need to wiggle it a little bit left and right. And what I do is I'll tighten the non-drive side just a little bit, and then I do what's called walking the wheel. So with one side tight, I can push on the front of the wheel one way or another, and this chain gets super tight whenever I push from the drive side, or from the non-drive side towards the drive side. And if I pull the wheel towards the non-drive side, this chain gets super loose, as you can see. So we're going to push from the non-drive side till the chain gets tight. We're going to tighten this lightly, and then at this point I'm going to re-inspect the chain. It's looking good. Now I'm going to loosen the non-drive side and make sure that the wheel is straight in the frame before retightening. So it's lined up. We're going to tighten that just a little bit. That's looking pretty straight. Now when you do this, sometimes this chain gets really tight, and it's a new chain. It's okay to be a little bit tight, but we're going to pedal and make sure that there is a tight spot. And what we're looking for is we're looking for a little bit of a loose spot, and we find one right here. This is perfect. The wheel is straight, the chain is perfect. So we're going to tighten the drive side just a little bit more. Then we're going to go back to the non-drive side, tighten this a little bit more, and we're going to keep repeating until we get to the desired tightness. Now this wheel needs to be pretty snug, so you do want to make it tight, but I've got a nice tool here that I can easily over tighten things if I'm not careful. So all I'm doing is, notice I'm just made it snug without making a lot of grunting noises. So I'm going to tighten this side good and snug, and now I'm going to tighten this brake band. Super important that you not forget this brake band. So many people have messed up their frames and their hubs by not tightening this. If this bolt were to fall out and you were to hit the brake, what happens is that brake arm starts to turn, and then what happens is it'll mess up the hub. It'll break the bearing adjustments free. The hub can over tighten. It could get loose. All sorts of things can happen. I'm losing my light. So this looks good, great. I'm spinning it. It's nice and quiet. Let's take this out for a test ride and see how it does. Now, before we go on that test ride, I do have to warn you that when you gear this bike down, not only is it going to accelerate easier, although it's going to have a lower top speed. The braking is going to be so much better. So don't go hitting the brakes thinking it's going to be the same, because the brakes are going to work better on this now, and it's also going to start off and climb hills better. Let's try it out. Alright, now that we've got this new gear on, let's give it a quick spin and see how it does. Oh, that's much better. I didn't even have to stand up. This is a much nicer feel, much better. The brakes do definitely work better. Yeah, this is I think this is going to be nice. Well, the customer's here to pick up the bike. If you liked this video, please leave me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to tell your friends. Check out some of the other videos on the corner of the screen. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.